Okay, so once you have the foil on your keyboard's backplate and on your keys, you're going to need to wire them up. The simplest thing to do is to take one of your long wires and a little bit of the copper foil, then tape that down with the copper foil. If you try taping it down with the aluminum tape, it can work, but it's a little more tricky. So I really recommend using the copper tape. And the reason for this is that the copper tape is conductive really well on both the back and the top side, while the aluminum tape, the aluminum foil, is only really well conductive on the top side. So let's keep that in mind. Now, you might have something that looks like that after you tape that down, or if you have placed the tape only along the edge, you'll end up with something like this. And over here, I have placed it with just the aluminum tape, but I'm still getting a good contact. It's just a bit trickier to get a good contact with that one. So at this point, your keyboard can be used with one key. So I'm just going to flip this over and show you what that would look like. And by pressing here, it's almost like I'm connecting the two wires. So I'm going to go grab an eBrain, and I am going to show you controlling the light using that keyboard. So I will plug into, I'm going to plug my bass into my 3.3. So I'm going to plug my bass into my 3.3. And then I'm going to plug my key into the green patch bay port. And at this point, when I touch down here, oh, that's not the green at all. That's the red. What was I thinking? Well, if you make a little mistake like that, don't fret, don't worry. So we could wire the base plate to 3.3 and the key that we've set up over to GPIO4, but this isn't very reliable. We really need to pull that pin down, have it so that it gives a reliable ground signal, a reliable 0, and have it so that when we connect it to 3.3 volts, then it's seen as a connection. So to do this, we're going to disconnect pin 4 and hook it into ground through a very simple circuit. So I'm going to unplug pin 4, and then I'm going to wire my ground over to the 0th column, and I'm going to wire pin 4 over to column 1. I've left a little gap in there, and this little gap is going to be where I put the resistor. There we go. Now, so what's happening here is this means that pin 4 is always connected to ground. So it's always going to read as 0 unless we also make a connection over to the 3.3 volts. And that's where our other wire comes in handy. So I'm going to bring the wire from the pin over to the column 1 that also is going to the pin 4. And now when I press over here, I get a signal. Isn't that great? Excellent. Well, thank you very much. If you like this, give us a thumbs up, subscribe,